Welcome to Lesson 1, Exploring Multiplication Patterns. When we talk about multiplication, we can use a simple diagram to help illustrate what multiplication really is. So here we have a little diagram that we call an array. So let's see what multiplication this array would be showing us. The first thing we look at is how many rows we have. So these are the ones that go across horizontally. So we see that there are 3. So we write down the number 3. And then we see how many counters we have in each row. So how many columns there are. So we count there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this array shows the multiplication 3 times 6. And if you remember from memorizing your multiplication facts that the answer is, I'll let you pause the video and figure it out. The answer is 18. And for those students that are just beginning to learn multiplication and don't know that 3 times 6 is 18, they could simply go and count how many circles there are in the entire array. So they would count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So that's how this array shows us that 3 times 6 is equal to 18. Let's look at another example together. So this time we are looking at a much smaller array. Remember, the first number is how many rows there are, and the second number is how many counters in each row. So pause the video for a second and write down the multiplication that you think this array is showing. If you wrote down 1 times 6 equals 6, you are correct. There is one row, and there are 6 counters in that one row, and altogether, if we count the counters, we see that there are 6 altogether here. Pretty simple array and pretty simple multiplication question. We all know that 1 times 6 is 6. Let's look at another number another multiplication that's a little bit more challenging. Let's look at 10 times 6. We're going to use 1 times 6 to help us with our 10 times 6. So we know that with 1 times 6, the answer is 6. So we're just going to write that down for a second. We're going to ignore that 0 in the 10. And now we notice that a 10 has 1 0 underneath it. So that 1 0 we're going to have to move over here into our answer and put beside the 6. Just like that. So 10 times 6 actually becomes 60. Let's look at another example. Let's make the problem even bigger. Now we're going to look at 100 times 6. So again, let's ignore the zeros in the 100, and let's remember that 1 times 6 is equal to 6. And now we can go back and count how many zeros are in the number 100. We count 1 0, 2 zeros. So we're going to take those 2 zeros and we're going to put them up here in our answers. So 100 times 6 actually becomes 600. It's a very simple rule to follow. If there is 1 0 in the question, then there'll be 1 0 here in the answer, if it's just a simple 10 times 6. If there are 2 zeros in the question here, like in the number 100, then we're going to have 2 zeros here in our answer. So we use the basic multiplication of 1 times 6 to help us answer 10 times 6 and 100 times 6. As a review, you're going to try doing 3 multiplication questions. So first write down what multiplication this array shows. So remember, the first number is how many rows there are. times the second number is equal to how many in each row, and then you get your total. So pause the video and write down the multiplication. So I'm sure you figured out that this array shows 2 times 4 equals 8. So now we're going to use this information to help us with a couple of larger multiplications. Next, you'll try to figure out what 20 times 4 is. Remember, 20 times 4 is just like 2 times 4. It's just there's this extra little 0 here after the 2. And then you're going to try to figure out what 200 times 4 is. Again, 200 times 4 is just like 2 times 4, except there are these 2 extra zeros here next to the 2, making it 200. So once you have the answers to both of these questions here written down on your paper, show your teacher and they will let you know if you did it correctly. Feel free to go back and watch the video again if you need help.